Welcome back to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. I'd like to start off by saying I hope everybody had a safe and happy Labor Day. This is usually the marker of the season changing. It's the end of summer unofficially. Down here in South Florida, it's summer all the time most of the year. So I feel for the rest of the country up north, that's a little chillier. It's going to get chillier very soon. And football's starting. Kids are going back to school. So that was the unofficial end of the summer. Of course, we'll get into the Juve parade that happened in New York City. It always marks the unofficial end of summer, and there's always something that happens there. But we'll get into that a little later. First, I wanted to state that September 6th starts the Jai-Alai League. What is Jai-Alai, you ask? Well, it's a sport that was created overseas. It's the fastest sport in the world. I'd like for you all, if you could check this out. I'll even put it up on the screen here. I'll show you just a little bit of what the league entails and what's going on there. So the sport is played down here in Miami. It's been actually played all over the United States for a long time, but it had its peak maybe in the late 80s, mid 80s. That's like the highest when it was on Miami Vice. Then the sport kind of took a tumble, and it's kind of going through a renaissance, so to speak. Of course, we don't have what we have in the parks where you see there's they have the handball courts, they have tennis courts. Where's the fronton? The fronton is where they play Jai-Alai. It's a big court. It almost looks like not even handball. I'd say more like a racquetball court, but it doesn't have all the sides of a racquetball court. Obviously, the racquetball has 4 sides, including the door you enter in. This one is just one big wall and the net on one side, another big wall to your left. The sport is played with a pelota, which is what you catch the ball with and throw the ball with your right hand. I understand some of you are left-handed or right-handed. No, this isn't like baseball. And you have to catch it and then throw it off against the wall. But this sport is something that's amazing. And I personally love the sport. I took a liking to it. A friend of mine took me there. And then I became almost addicted to this on the down low. But this league is starting on September 6th at the Magic City Fronton. That's out in Hialeah of Miami. And I would like for you guys, if you can, check it out. It's a wonderful event. They're on YouTube. You could check them out on YouTube. They actually could watch the games live, and you could kind of keep up with the league. It's a very fun sport. It's the fastest sport in the world. Hopefully this grows. Maybe you'll see a comeback. Maybe you'll see it back. It used to be in Connecticut. It used to be in, I believe, in other states, maybe out in California. It was all over the United States, and then it went down, and we're trying to give it the renaissance it deserves. So that's starting September 6th. And then we're going to get into, I guess it's the end of the summer. So, look, I love baseball. I'm sure other people love baseball. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm a Mets fan. I've always been a Met fan. The Mets are my favorite team in the whole world. It started way back when I was teeny little Sal. And I believe one of my family members handed me a little baseball bat from the game. It was tiny. It was like a little bat, like that big. And it said Mets. And from that moment on, I was a Mets fan. Of course, they won the World Series. I remember I could go as far back I could remember in the late 80s, maybe 87, 88. I remember watching them with the uniforms. I'm a big Mets fan, but of course I lived out here now in Florida, and I have to say I'm a big fan of a particular stadium. That's Lone Depot Park. Now, the Miami Marlins, formerly known as the Florida Marlins, they play there. I have to say, I've been to plenty of stadiums. I've been to the Philly Met game. I've been in Philly. I've been in Washington, D.C. I watched the Nationals and the Mets. I've been to Texas. I watched the Texas Rangers and the Mets. Obviously, I've been to Old Yankee Stadium, New Yankee Stadium, Shea Stadium, Citi Field. I have to be honest with you. Lone Depot Park has become something of a phenomenon for me. I love this place. The only problem is the fans in Miami, I guess they're not too crazy about baseball. The place is never full. But when I'm there, when you're there, it's so much fun. I love this place. I love going to the game. I actually like, in center field, they have a cafecito stand. So what they sell there, they sell espresso. If you don't know in Spanish, they say cafecito. They have cafecito. They sell all the Cuban pastries. They sell sandwiches there. Kind of like going to a Cuban bakery out here in Miami or, in Fort Lauderdale or, any of these areas that you see. And it's just a great time. So I have to say, it's the end of the summer, so this is going to be the final month to go to any of their games because obviously the Marlins aren't that good of a team. But I like to actually show this. This is actually one of my favorite things to watch at the game is when the mascots run. They chase each other around and see who's going to win that race. And there you have it. I mean, it's so much fun. It's a good time. It's a good laugh. Lone Depot Park is a lot of fun. When you walk in, they have a little area. It looks like a trailer inside, and you go in there. You can take pictures in there. Also, they have a band, the Pachanga Band. They're playing in the stadium. They play in the stand somewhere. They move around. Sometimes they play outside. It's just a great time. I highly recommend trying out a game at Lone Depot Park. Or maybe you like to go to where your team plays. I'm going to tell you this. Like I said, I've been to all the stadiums. I think I like Lone Depot Park a lot more than I like Yankee Stadium. Even my beloved Mets with Citi Field, Phillies, their stadium, Washington, D.C. with the Nationals. All these ballparks I've been to, Lone Depot is on the top of the list. As for this moment, because I haven't yet been to certain ballparks I want to go to, but this is a load of fun, and I highly recommend it. I also recommend that you try Jai-Alai and see what you think about the sport, because it is up and coming. And listen, with that being said, we're going to move on to topics of discussion here. And of course, there was Juve. And Juve is a holiday. It's a Caribbean holiday that they celebrate in Brooklyn, New York. So I was a cop, as you know, in the NYPD. And I actually started my career in Crown Heights, where exactly that is the precinct and the command where the parade takes place. It's usually a whole weekend. They start around Thursday night or Friday morning, and they party all the way until Labor Day at the end of the night into Tuesday morning. The New York City Police Department prepares for this. They actually prepare a full year in advance because it's a big operation. It's always been a nightmare there. It's always something that happens. Even when I was in the 71st precinct, I actually have to admit I never worked this parade in my entire career. The closest I got to it was I was actually starting out as a rookie, so I had to work that night, and I was working, but not in the area of the parade. We drove by it, But then they told me to go to the opposite side because they were worried that things would spill onto the other side of the command, which would be towards Utica Avenue in that area. The parade is on the opposite side. So I never partook in this parade my whole career. I've never actually been to this parade. So with that being said, there were incidents, a big incident that occurred. And then, of course, the leadership in New York City, which would be the upper management of the NYPD, and, of course, the illustrious mayor of New York, Eric Adams, who he had a press conference, and he starts to talk about what happened there. And then there was a media tour done by the illustrious Chief of Patrol, John Schell, and the Deputy Commissioner of Operations, Kaz Dordry. So I'm going to play all of this for you.
The New York City Police Department, just what they did over the weekend, starting with Juve. The team was out there. Juve was probably one of the safest Juves we've had 3 years in a row. We made some major shifts from the hours to partner with our on-the-ground team, and all the agencies come out. A lot of people don't realize what's taking place behind the scene. All of our agencies come out, and we have had a real proactive approach. I think they removed 24 guns off the street pre-Juve. So, in one of the interviews, the person said he was out, he had his gun because he was out, he was going to shoot someone that he had a dispute with. I think the number was 25, thanks. 25 guns off the street, pre-Juve. So we were proactive. This was a well-executed plan. And so some people would say, okay, well, 5 people were shot. Let's be clear. One nut shot 5 people. One. And we were just in that area. And so when you look at that one person who we're going to find that shot 5 people, you remove him from the equation, you got hundreds of thousands of people that were out this weekend and really heard the call of a peaceful Juve and a peaceful West Indian Day parade. So really hats off to the teams, and our hearts go out to the family members. I know one person died. We go out, our hearts goes out to the family members, because you come out to celebrate. You don't want to come out and have that violence that we've seen in the past. That parade has always attracted a small element of people that wanted to commit violence. But we showed that if we come together, we can prevent that. And hats off to all those who were involved.
Shootings are down, but then you get high-profile incidents like you had this weekend at the parade, at the West Indian Day parade. And a lot of people are going, okay, yeah, it is, but there's still big crimes happening in the city right now. Is there anything you can do to try and get that number down even more?
We are. We constantly, look at where we're placing our police officers at. But let's talk about the shooting at the parade, which was when we heard that call come over the radio with the cops screaming for help, shots fired, shots fired. Think about that. The cops are screaming shots fired on the radio. What does that tell us as management? That they were right there. So how do you stop somebody from walking up to a group of people, pulling out a gun and shooting at somebody? Shooting at 5 people, we're trying to shoot 1, we believe, and actually inadvertently shot additional 4 people.
You think one person was targeted and the other 4 got shot? I won't say by accident, but not the intended targets?
That's what we are leaning towards. But like I said before, the cops heard the shots. They run out there with their guns drawn. There's almost 1 million people at this parade. How do you prevent that? And the department's constantly getting criticized for that. But how do we stop somebody, a madman, a maniac, a psycho, from taking out his weapon and firing it at somebody?
Well, there's talk that maybe the parade needs to be shut down. I mean, last year the parade was fabulous, no problems, right? Nothing like this. Five shootings, and by the way, there are reports that there were plenty of guns at the parade over the weekend.
Let's put this in context, right? Compare this to this parade 20 years ago.
We're not talking 20 years ago.
No, but
okay.
Let's put it in context. Now let's get to the parade. Are we going to shut the parade down? No, we're not going to surrender.
So what can you do differently? 5 people were shot.
Well, we could talk about, maybe it'll be a tough task, but I know a question came about wanding at that parade, to wand 1 million people. It's possible.
How do you wand 1 million people who have different entry points?
Well, we could talk about what we do on New Year's Eve. People at New Year's Eve come at 8 o'clock in the morning and get wanted, and they get put in their places, and they have to stay there for hours. I'm not saying we're going to do that, but how do we do things different? We'll post action. It's like we do every parade. But again, one incident, a tragic incident, and we're standing there at the parade saying, okay, this is done. What do we do next? Let's keep the rest of the parade safe the best
Commissioner,
we can.
do you know who this person is who did it?
I'm extremely confident in our detectives. We got the best detectives on the globe. And
Do you have a picture?
we have not yet. We have somebody that we are extremely interested in, and I'm going to leave it at that.
He's known to.
Oh, Roseanne, you're always pushing.
That's my job. So you know this person. Has this person been in the system before?
We don't have an identification on in the individual, but we have a couple of people that we like. We think there's more than one person that was actually shooting.
So let me ask you, one of the things that when you look at the crime statistics, again, down in just about every category, but it seems that a lot of the shootings that we hear are young people. We keep hearing about teenagers shooting, or maybe somebody who's 20 or whatever. Do you think a lot of this is gang related? Is that what's going on in New York right now? And is it any different than it has been in years past?
No, I would say over 60% of our shootings, regardless of what year, have a gang nexus, gang motivated to it. We took one shooting on Juve at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we took one shooting at the parade, and they're both gang motivated. So it's not a deviation from the normal what goes on here in New York City. But again, like 1 million people, but we'll get this done.
The question is why, or how did the suspect go into the wind so quickly? And my other question is, I do not want to discount the immense work you put in for the security plan. I get it. But the shooting did happen on the parade route during the day. This wasn't tucked away on a side street. How come the message is not, we owe it to Brooklynites to provide a safe parade where there is no deadly violence? We failed, we're sorry, and we're going to try better to make sure that happens next year.
I'm gonna have Chief O'Sullivan answer your first question, but we'll work backwards. Let's have Chief Madry and Chief Shell address what you said at the end.
And of course, we take responsibility for someone being hurt out there. We didn't pull the trigger, but we take responsibility because it is our job to keep New Yorkers safe. And I think that's what we've been working for many, many years. We sit in meetings with the community. We sit in meetings with elected officials and clergy. And we sit there because we're trying to devise ways to keep people safe. And that's us being accountable to the community and to the people who serve the community. So, of course, we take responsibility for it. I started off by saying this is without regard to the victims. Of course, I want condolences to the family, and I want those who are hurt to get better. All right, we accept responsibility for anybody that gets hurt at an event like this, but I also want people to know that we put a lot of energy and a lot of effort into this, and overall, we kept New Yorkers safe. But again, one person decided that it was, that they had the right to do something like that, which they didn't, and we will bring them to justice.
John?
Yeah, just quickly, when you say we failed, can you specify what that means?
There's a shooting in broad daylight on the parade route, just off Franklin Avenue, perhaps the busiest part of the parade route. This wasn't on Buffalo Avenue. You get what I'm saying.
It was on Franklin Easton, where probably our largest contingent of parade goers, plus there's 1 million people on the route. So to say we failed, I strongly disagree with you. Okay, that's number one. Number two, 1 million people at a parade. You've been to the parade before, correct? You know how busy the streets are during the parade. People are found on floats. So how does that happen? How it happened. All right, but I like to think, as human beings, when we responded quickly and our cops were running towards the danger, not looking to fail, as you put it, that as human beings we were upset what happened. As professionals, we're upset because we want our plan to be flawless. And we've set a high mark for this parade and Juve the last couple of years, a very high mark. So what can we do from that point on from the parade? Because we certainly didn't fail. We regrouped, as the chief of the department mentioned, and say, how can we on the move with this happening change? What can we do different? And what did we do different? We had a safe event the rest of the way. With our cops, we talk about gun arrests like they're just numbers and figures in a sheet. It's a very dangerous endeavor to approach people with firearms. As Chief LaPetri pointed out, the history behind those firearms, very dangerous to do, and we did it. So the one incident, we wish it didn't happen. Our hearts go out to them, because we're all fathers and moms and dads here. Our hearts go out to them. But to say we failed at one incident is just patently wrong. Okay.
Let me chime in.
Yeah, hold on one
Commissioner
second, guys.
Oh, okay. You know, I just wanted to touch on one thing with Dan's question. You asked about how did he get away. If you've been to this parade before, thousands of people on the street. The music is deafening. You can't even hear your cell phone ringing out there. All right. And the minute the gunshot started, it was complete chaos. People were running everywhere. Our officers were there very fast. But now you're looking at thousands of people running in multiple directions. Some of our officers drew their guns and then they put their guns back in because they thought better of it. You have, hundreds of thousands of people running. How do you even get a clear shot? All right. Our officers use a lot of discretion out there as well. They went out there. They tried to accomplish the mission. We weren't able to make a quick apprehension. But again, we have the best detectives in the world, and they're going to bring this person to justice.
Commissioner, let me jump in over here. I spoke with the officers, the officers that were, as we would call it, first doing the scene, and immediately they told me that, they didn't know. Did they have a general idea if they wanted? People were pointing in a direction for them to run. They looked, then they looked back and saw the victims laying on the floor. So you know what? They made the decision to go back and help those victims out first. And then obviously while they were in the process of helping them, giving them performing life-saving measures, they were getting from witnesses descriptions of people who they think that who they thought might have committed the shooting. Secondly, if you look at that table over there, every last one of those guns were loaded. Those are I don't know how the exact count of the ammunition, but every last one of those live rounds in there is a life that was saved during that weekend, especially on a Labor Day parade.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think the question is so important. That's why we're spending so much time with it, because, as I said earlier, from a child, I used to come from Harlem and go to this event. Some of them been on this police department over 30 years. And I think the thing here that we got to remember is that you used to come to this parade, families would come with an expectation of violence. And it says a lot about this police department that now people come with an expectation that nothing should happen. That is a credit to the men and women of the police department and the community at large. And when you see, extended clips and guns like this taken off the streets, that's why it's not a failure.
Yes.
Our cops are the ones sitting with these victims and their families and talking to them about how much work they're going to put in and not getting any sleep while we're out here. His guys are out there spending the last 30-something hours straight trying to get this shooter, and we're going to get him. And as I said earlier, turn yourself in because you don't have much longer to be on the street. We're going to get you. So when you say a failure, we sit with these families and we talk to them and we let them know that we're going to bring these people to justice. But we are talking about 1 million people being out there, and even if 1% is out there, 0.5% is out there trying to commit violence, that's still a massive undertaking, and it's unlike any other event in the city. All right, I'll let Chief O'Sullivan answer you. Can you just let him know, what was your first question again?
About how he was able to escape, and I understand police were responding, I just want to know, now that we have some time between now and the shooting, did you review any footage to show, did he dip in the subway, did he get into someone's apartment building? Do you have any information of how he was able to get out?
Well, again, the parade route does have the barriers. I just want to put in perspective the volume of people that were there and how someone from a parade route could, with that many people, could jump over the barrier, the person is armed, and fire into a crowd and fire. With that said, people had scattered. But I just wanted to emphasize something that has to be brought to the attention. Officers responded within seconds, and they ran toward gunfire. Many on this executive, on this dais, were here within minutes, including myself, the Chief Department, Chief Patrol. The response was incredible. What's continuing, and was thorough too, was the investigation. Various units within the Detective Bureau responded immediately and communicated among ourselves immediately too. We very thorough investigation. We take pride in this event too. There was a lot of steps that went here, and I just want to say I'm very proud of the work that was done to obtain these guns and make these arrests. I'm very proud of our investigators that have thoroughly conducted this investigation.
All right, so I just want to say a few things here right off the bat. So number one, this press conference where Eric Adams tried to basically gloss over the fact that there was a mass shooting and just say that one shooting, one person, a madman did a shooting. That was a mass shooting. You know something, Eric? Somebody died. Not only did they die, someone fired into a crowd of people. Where later on, your own executives were saying that police officers were on the scene and did I hear that right? That they drew their weapons with a crowd of people around them? I mean, whatever happened to, safety on your muzzle? Don't point your muzzle towards people. Like, this sounds like a ragtag bunch of cops that John Schell and Kaz Dodry put together, if that story is true. I hate to believe that. I wore that uniform, and I would think that cops would be smart enough not to just draw their gun. You hear a gunshot, you don't automatically draw your gun. You take cover, especially in a crowd of people. I mean, that would be, you got to have one accidental shooting and you got to have another mass shooting. Yeah. So look, that's just crazy. What I heard, that if any of that is true, I don't know what to believe with these executives. But back to Eric Adams. Eric Adams saying, one person, ruined the perfect, the lowest crime, and all this stuff. There's like the lowest August crime numbers is another thing they keep harping about, which I'll get to in a little bit. But so one person, Eric, no, it was a mass shooting. And while this was going on the timestamps of the social media post that you and I believe Chief of Patrol John Schell put up, you guys were taking pictures and posting this on social media as this mass shooting occurred. So the problem here, Eric, is that you were at the parade, then you left because it was your birthday. You were out all night, and you didn't even make one comment about this until 8 in the morning. At 8 a.m. in the morning, Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, who was at this parade, pictured at this parade, makes a comment about what had occurred as the head of the city government. That is unbelievable. And then he's giving applause. Oh, great job or whatever. People feel so unsafe, and you're saying they did such a great job when you had a mass shooting and there were guns found all over the place. And then you hear your executives talking about August was the lowest number, the lowest crime numbers in so long. So you took a 28-day period and you cherry-picked and said the last 28 days out of a full year, let's pat ourselves in the back. It was the safest August of all time. But he's cherry-picking 28 days. Meanwhile, we have the real numbers, and we'll look at right here on the screen. And what makes this worse, what I'm looking at, how you see violent felonies are actually up 4.1%. From 2023 to 2024 under John Schell's tenure as Chief of Patrol and Kaz Dodry's tenure as Deputy Commissioner of Operations, where they're spewing, we'll call them alternate facts. They're alternate facts, what they're trying to spew out there. But those crime numbers are clearly cherry-picked, and they just gloss over the fact that violent felonies are up, misdemeanors are way up, and then you see the final questions where when they were finally asked that, what actually happened, and that the reporter thinks what many people believe, that they failed. They failed the public. There was a mass shooting. There's John Schell browbeating, acting like a big, tough guy. Oh, I think, I don't believe it's that. When in reality, the reporter had it right. Just admit that you could do better, which is that's the real line here. You have to admit, listen, we tried to get this right. Obviously, we had a mass shooting. Our cops did the best they can, which they did. The rank and file always do their job. It's the executives that don't know what they're doing, like these guys. Like you see John Schell and Kaz Dodry, who are on social media. Instead of worrying about public safety, they were posting on social media. That's what you have. So with them saying what they said at this press conference, it's really a slap in the face. The reporter is telling you what the public thinks. They think it's a failure. You failed the public with this mass shooting. It's very apparent. It doesn't matter 20 years ago, 10 years ago. You had a death, you have people in a hospital, and now you say that, they're going to give you conflicting reports. And remember, the original thought here was Eric Adams said it was one person shooting. Now you're hearing that they believe it's more than one. With these guys, they can never tell you the truth. They talk out of both sides of their mouth. Eric Adams is the number one guy that's been doing that almost his whole police career, into his political career, and now he's teaching all these guys underneath him, apparently, because they all do the same thing. So now I'm going to show you another clip. The first Deputy Commissioner, Tanya Kinsella, she was asked a question about being a Juve, and just listen to this.
So I'll answer your first question. I'm a proud West Indian. And for many years, as a young girl, I myself would attend the West Indian Day Parade and Juve. And historically, there has been violence throughout the years as a teenager. And I must say that I'm proud of the men and women of the police department, because starting, Labor Day is Monday, Sunday and Monday for most people, but Labor Day really starts for the NYPD on Thursday, right? It starts Thursday for us, but months of preparations beforehand. And the men and women from the entire department was flown in to Brooklyn, to those precincts that the chief mentioned, and they haven't seen their families for the whole weekend. And they worked tirelessly, so I'm very proud of them, and I'm very proud of the executive staff that we all worked this weekend. We were there for Juve, we were there for the parade, and like my coworker said, we can't prevent everything, but we are proud of our men and women that worked very hard to get guns off the streets, to keep us safe. I walked on Juve night. Yes, I walked it, and I was very happy. And I was proud to see people out there not being afraid. Young kids, babies, grandmothers, aunties from everywhere felt safe enough on Juve, which is historically violence, but felt comfortable enough to be out there to 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. And to me, that's a win. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, so the point of this is to show you, I lost track. I lose track of any time Tanya Kinsella is speaking. I don't know what she's what her point is, but I did get one part. The men and women of the police department. I keep hearing her and the police commissioner, Eddie Caban. By the way, where is he? I don't know. Is he? Well, he can't be at Conso Frito because that's no longer in existence. So, but Eddie Caban and Tanya Kinsella, every other sentence ends in the men and women of the police department. It sounds like a broken record. And I don't know what she was trying to state here. She's walking around Juve night. Well, if you think this was bad, this was another question asked to Eric Adams at the press conference. They were mentioning Randy Mastro, who we covered in the last episode, who most definitely will not be confirmed as the head of Corporation Counsel. And they asked him a question, and he's talking about something that, well, you just take a listen.
And also, back on the Mastro situation, do you feel like council members treated him unfairly? There were many instances where council members would cut him off and not let him finish, his thought or his entire statement. Kind of seemed like their minds were mostly made up already. Any reaction?
Well, I don't know if many of you remember. I saw this coming with, on how we communicate with each other, and we do it all the time in the street on how we should communicate. I told you I was not happy with how Melody, a long-term civil servant, how she was talked about. I was really not pleased when Tiffany went in to speak. We just should not talk to people in a discourteous fashion. You could ask tough questions, but people are watching us, and we should have a level of decorum. And I just think that not only for Randy, But for anyone that comes in to testify, we should show a level of decorum and professionalism on how we interact with each other. And I've noticed that on a couple of times, and I just don't feel that's how we should treat each other. On the side of our police cars is CPR. That should be on the side of every building. Courtesy, professionalism, and respect. We should always display. But again, I did my job. It's time for the city council to do their job.
All right. So I don't know if Eric got the memo. I mean, I know he's had a lot of things on his mind, like, I don't know when he's about to get his next subpoena or if he's going to be indicted. But the slogan actually changed on the New York City Police Department vehicles. It's no longer courtesy, professionalism, respect. In fact, Eric's administration allowed the NYPD to change that slogan at the tune of $175,000. Yeah. I don't know where this guy's head is at lately. And with that, let's play this interview I did with Sam Sorbo on the Sam Sorbo Show on the Patriot TV network.
Okay, moving on. My guest is Sal Greco. He is a former 14-year New York Police Department veteran, and he's also the host of the Sal Greco Show. And he was a political target, terminated for being associated with none other than Roger Stone, but he's preparing to sue for millions. And so we wish him well in that endeavor. Welcome to the program, Sal.
Thank you, Sam. It's an honor to be here.
Well, it's great to talk to you. Now, this story is fairly sordid and really disconcerting. You're going to have to start at the beginning and explain to my audience what we're talking about with this restaurant.
Oh, yes, the restaurant that's going on there. So if we go to the beginning, I was NYPD veteran for 14 years, had an unblemished record. As you can see, I have numerous awards in the back. I have nothing nefarious on my record. And then apparently someone in the police department was irked that I was, one, a friend of Roger Stone's, and two, I'm a supporter of President Trump. And for that reason, a 19-month witch hunt ensued. They used illegal subpoenas. They did all kinds of things. It ultimately ended up in front of a department trial, which is an internal trial, and they found me guilty of what they said was violating their own NYPD patrol guide procedures, which is what governs the NYPD, and every rank follows the structure of the rule book. And the rule states that you cannot wrongfully or knowingly associate with someone who is reasonably believed to have been engaged in or likely to have engaged in criminal activity, i.e., they said Roger Stone because obviously he was convicted of a felony but pardoned. And of course, you remember that trial was all political. That didn't matter to them. Then obviously I engaged it. I put in a lawsuit. That suit is actually still ongoing in the courts. I sued the city of New York and the NYPD. And then, I've come to find out that the police department, i.e. Eric Adams and company, and virtually the last three police commissioners of the NYPD have been hanging out at a place that really they had no business ever being in. And it was called Conso Frito in the Bronx. And it's owned by the police commissioner, current police commissioner's brother. And this place is notorious for having every violation in the book. I really don't know why they were opened for 4 years and would apparently never closed for any reason, but they've had violations. They had an illegal party shed. The shed was a fire trap. It was violations from the FDNY. The buildings department ordered them to shut it down. They never did. There's other info that I'm going to actually release on my own show, the Sal Greco Show, which will pertain to Conso Frito and basically a lot of corruption here between the police department and other agencies. And, I brought this up saying, hey, the manager of the place, the creative manager of the place is a guy by the name of Jimmy Rodriguez. He's a infamous restaurateur, but he's also a self-admitted criminal and a mob associate. And Eric Adams seems to be chummy with him. So does Eddie Caban, the current police commissioner, whose brother owned this place, and many NYPD executives. And they were all rubbing elbows with numerous people there that had criminal records. And There's convicted criminals like Fat Joe, Peter Guns. These are people that you know that have a record, and I have no idea why the police department is there. And also, many of the higher-end Democrat politicians also were at this place, including New York State Attorney General Letitia James. We have the lieutenant governor, both of them. The one that was indicted and had to leave, I believe his name is Benjamin Frank. I hope I don't have his last name right. And also the current lieutenant governor, Delgado. We have the New York State Assembly Speaker, Carl Hastie. We have councilman of New York City, Ralph Salamanca. We had former Councilwoman Velasquez. These were people that were there so many times, pictured there, partying there, numerous fundraisers. There is no record of anyone ever putting one of these fundraisers on their campaign finance. It is a mess. And this is right under the eyes of virtually everyone in New York City. And the question still remains is, why did these people, why is all of this, why did this occur, and how nobody is virtually wanting to say anything about it? We have a few articles. We do have a few people in the media talking about it, but this is something that's very big, because remember here, Sam, the people that frequented this place have one thing in common. They're all Trump haters. We have Richie Torres. He's another one there that was always hanging out there. He has a lot to say about Donald Trump, but hey, don't look at him. That's associating with every criminal and felon. And by the way, we don't even know who's paying for all those meals and all those parties they had there, because that's a whole nother issue. So people need to see this and say, yes, it's a place to eat, but something isn't right when we see every branch of government and the police department hanging out with known criminals and felons virtually in a place where a guy like Jimmy Rodriguez, who has a history via his former places like Jimmy's Bronx Cafe, which was notorious for shootings, stabbings, murders, unsolved murders. Major League Baseball banned their own players from going there for a couple of years. And here he is opening his 10th or 15th place, and he helped open it. And then, of course, it's shuttered, much like all his other businesses. Very, very strange here what's going on.
It sounds like you've got your own personal version of The Sopranos happening right under your nose. And by the way, so to point out the two glaring sort of issues is, one, these people are consorting with known criminals, which is what they got you, or, went after you for. And two, correct, they're having fundraisers, but we don't know where the funds went.
Yes.
Is that
correct? Sam, here's the other part. They're endangering the public safety by continuously operating, even though we know, and it's known, that it was a public safety hazard. They were ordered to take down the structure, which you could see online. They held numerous parties there. They were open for what we understand this entire time. There's nothing showing they ever mitigated any of their issues with any of the city agencies. FDNY called it a fire trap. They've issued violations. They were still open. They still used this thing. And then when the courts finally intervened and said they had to stop, there was a court order, they did it again. And then they were ordered to tear it down. They finally tore it down. And the next day, they were already advertising a party they had, which was, again, it's illegal because they had it in the parking lot. And they were serving alcohol to everyone. And the New York City sheriff, Anthony Miranda, he's standing there with Jimmy Rodriguez drinking with the police department in the front, which is just looks like a scene out of a mob movie. That's what it really looks like. And you wonder what the hell was going on here, Sam. It's really disturbing that even this stuff happened. And everyone just seems to shrug their shoulders like, oh, just another day in New York City or just another day in the police department.
Well, it seems like it's a microcosm of what they're doing to Trump. So, so they project onto him the things that they're doing that are evil, and then they go after him for it. And nobody's coming after them because they control the police or the Justice Department.
They have they control many of the levers. Obviously, we do have the Justice Department going after first Eric Adams because he's he's one of the most conflicted guys ever to be a politician. I mean, if it's not him, it's everybody underneath him. He's involved in a sexual assault lawsuit from 30 years ago, which they used the same law that they went after Donald Trump with, the Adult Survivors Act. It was used against Eric Adams. So now Eric Adams has to deal with that. And his police department is also involved in numerous sexual misconduct lawsuits. Now, Sam, in the city, there's a thing called GML 50K2. It's a general municipal law. In this law, it states that the corporation council, which represents the city, they need to explain, they have to give a reason on why they're representing these defendants. Because, as you know, sexual assault, rape, anything involved, harassment does not fall under the scope of duties for a New York City police officer or New York City employee. Yet, all his aides, you have Timothy Pearson, who's a deputy mayor to the deputy mayor of public safety, which is Eric Adams' right-hand man. You have John Schell, the chief of department. We have the chief of, he's the chief of patrol, chief of department, Jeffrey Madry, deputy commissioner of operations, Kaz Dawdry. We have a civilian, Brian Adams, who's involved in another 2 lawsuits, I believe, of sexual harassment. All of these people are being represented by the city, costing a lot of money, okay? And it's illegal. It's actually official misconduct, yet we don't have an answer on why they're representing them. We don't need the letter to state what the legal defense is. We need the letter to state what is the reason the taxpayers have to fund these guys' legal defense. It's technically illegal, and we still don't have an answer. And this is just a little microcosm of this administration, Sam. It's really disturbing what's going on.
But I don't even know. I don't even know how you resolve that, because you're trying to resolve it with the people who are doing the misdeed. You're saying, but what you're doing is wrong, and they're saying, yep. And what are you going to do about it? Because we control the levers of power here.
That's basically what this seems like. Is a guy like Timothy Pearson, he's basically a thug. I mean, he's involved in an FBI investigation, a Department of investigation. He's got 4 sexual harassment lawsuits. He has no business being a city employee, yet he's still a city employee. And he has 2 pensions, by the way. We don't understand what goes through the mind of Eric Adams, other than he likes to have his boys around him and just let them do whatever they want, because he never pulls the reins on them. And now you're seeing why the city has these problems. I mean, I'm just reading something that just came out about he says that they're going to continue to have the migrants in these shelters. Now, I can tell you this, Sam, there's a law that states in New York City that anyone that seeks shelter must be referred to the shelter, and they have to house them. That is correct. But the law, Sam, states that that's for documented citizens. It never says anything about undocumented, which would be illegals. Now, Eric Adams, I believe he challenged this very lightly, never mentioning this, and then he just settled it with the ACLU. Instead, the question here, Sam, should be, why does the city have to shelter undocumented? It was never written in this law. It was just automatically the city just sheltered anyone. Why? And this has been going on for decades. It's an institutional problem that Eric Adams, who campaigned on I'm the swagger man and I'm the former cop and all, the city's not surviving, it's thriving, all this garbage, but yet he never does anything for the people. I mean, yesterday they had a shooting. 5 people were shot. Eric Adams was out celebrating his birthday, didn't mention anything until 8 a.m. because he almost got away with saying, I'm the first mayor that on Juve, which is the holiday they had, I'm the first mayor where there were no incidents. Instead, it was a big incident, and they were trying to be hush-hush about it, especially him. It's just disgusting, Sam. But this guy, and he's under a federal investigation. I understand he soon will be indicted off this investigation just because he is a conflicted individual. And, Sam, this is a microcosm of the country. As New York City goes, so does the United States.
Sal, we've run out of time. You are a great talker. I'm sure your show is phenomenal, and people should go listen to the Sal Greco show. And I would love to have you back on, because we didn't even get to your personal story, which I would love to hear. So will you come back on the show?
I definitely will, Sam. It's an honor. And I got to tell you one thing. My mom is a huge fan of your husband. She used to watch that show religiously, just to let you know. I remember as a child, you could tell him my mother loves his show. She watches all his movies. Whatever he puts out, she loves, by the way. I hear it from her all the
that's
time.
awesome.
I love Kevin Sorbo, so that was going on for years, just to let you know.
Sal Greco, everyone, thank you so much for coming on the program. Got to take a quick break, and when we come back, well, the wrap up. So stay tuned. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. I'll be right back.
All right, well, there was my segment and my interview with Sam Sorbo on the Sam Sorbo Show. I'd like to thank her for having me on the show. And, my final thought here is that the men and women of the police department, not to steal that line from Tanya Kinsella or Eddie Caban, but the rank and file, they work very hard. I don't want people in New York City to go to the corner and start yelling at that cop on the corner when really the anger should be towards the leadership in the police department and the people that are in charge in the city, like the mayor, who are completely inept in what they're doing. And they talk out of both sides of their mouths, and they actually put their constituents, their police officers, the people underneath them, in trouble and in jeopardy with their dumb decisions. You kind of saw that with Juve. Once again, this is a parade, a detail, a festival that always ends the same way. This is basically what we, used to call on the job when I was a police officer. This is the Super Bowl of parades. This is the Super Bowl event of the year. You have New Year's Eve and Juve. Both of them always have incidents. So this is something that no matter what you look at, it's never going to be perfect. And I'm not sitting here pointing fingers at the men and women of the police department. I'm not pointing fingers at rank and file, lieutenants, supervisors that did a great job under these circumstances. But when I hear the chief of patrol and the chief of department and the police commissioner wasn't even there, but the first deputy commissioner and then the mayor continuously spewing alternate facts, this only leads for me to say this is the least transparent administration in the history of New York City. You can say what you want about Bill de Blasio, who was probably the next to worst mayor in the history of New York City, but he would make a decision. He wouldn't be indecisive like this character, Eric Adams. And by the way, John Schell and Kaz Dordry, they were doing a media tour. Did anybody bother asking why the city is representing them in their sexual misconduct cases, which is, again, illegal under GML 50K2? Because I didn't know, and unless this changed, sexual assault, sexual harassment, rape, that does not fall under the scope of a police officer's duty, nor a New York City employee. It's actually a crime. And this is official misconduct. And yet the media remains silent on that fact. And with that, if you liked what you saw, if you liked what you heard, hit that like button, share, subscribe on YouTube, on Rumble, hit the Rumble button. Same thing, click that follow button. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any other major platform, just download it and share it out as well. Because we're here trying to spread the truth. The factual narrative, as somebody said. Well, meanwhile, they like to only spew alternate facts. Pray for New York City, folks. Pray for New York City. And if you can, head out to the baseball game and watch Jai-Alai. And with that, see you on the next one.